meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome. The Transportation Committee reviews items of interest regarding all modes of transportation in the city of Oshkosh, including motor, transit, bike, and pedestrian. We are an advisory committee, and our favorable recommendation today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council as needed. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this committee. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss the item with any council member. If the committee does not recommend an item, the council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding this item. All ordinances require 2 readings before the Common Council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, April 23rd at 6 p.m. You'll be allowed to comment on that item at that time. The council will take no action. On Tuesday, May 14th at 6 p.m. the item will be a second reading, at which time the council will take action and you'll be allowed to speak. This afternoon meeting, I will read each agenda item, which time, if you'd like to speak, please step forward at the podium. Seeing no one here for that. Tonight, this afternoon, we have 2 alternates for this committee, and today Deb will be voting as we have as our alternate. Since we have no one looking at going to say anything, I'll skip the public comment section. But with that, then let's do the roll call.
Erickson?
Here.
Merritt?
Here.
Hartman?
Here.
Armstrong?
Here.
Martin? Here.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our March meeting?
So moved.
Okay. From Deb. Second?
I'll second.
Evelyn seconds. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got a call for all. I just.
Erickson?
Aye.
Merritt?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Before we move to we have no old business. Before we move to new business, this is Lindsay's last meeting with us. She did not run for council again. Thank you for your service here and particularly in the council. I know, not personally, but I know from hearing others what a demanding role that is. So thank you so much for all you've done for the committee and for the community.
Yeah, I think we figured that Lindsay's been, so you've been on council 4 years, but then you were on the transit advisory board for at least 2 prior to that.
So, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
been on this board for a good 6 years.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll still be around. I'm sure always a transportation supporter. So,
Right.
yeah. Thanks for all you do too.
So Jim, do you want to review the crash report?
Yeah, so you're gonna, fortunately or fortunately, hear me talk a lot. So basically, I try to do an analysis each year of crashes in the city. I'll just kind of go over some of the high level stuff here. We've been doing this, and my predecessor started doing this, and even his predecessor as well. So we just look at some different things. The first thing we look at is the total number of crashes and kind of compare that to previous years. So looking at that, this 2023, we had 1,459 crashes, which was a little bit up from 22. 20 and 21 are kind of, those are anomalies with, obviously COVID and effects after that. So it is up a little bit based on the historical trends. However, there are some good news once I get down a little bit further. Then we look at the injuries and fatalities, and there was only 1 fatality last year, which is still too many, obviously, but it is down from the previous year by quite a bit. The last couple of years, the majority of those fatalities have been motorcycle accidents, unfortunately. But the number of injuries is still, it's comparably, it's low compared to the pre-roundabout days. We started, roundabouts I think was around 2000, 13-ish, 12 to 13. So you can see before roundabouts, we were at like 549 injuries a year, and now we're into the low to mid 300s. So I think that shows that roundabouts have done what they were designed to do, which obviously is, decrease the number of injuries and accident severity. I mean, initially after they were constructed, the number of crashes, still went up a little bit as people are getting familiar with them. But the good news, like I said, is the number of injuries and the severity of those crashes is less, because now you're having glancing blows versus angled crashes, which obviously are more severe. So that's the good news from the injury standpoint. Then we look at bike and pedestrians. This has went down a little bit, but it's still kind of hovering in this area. There were a few more with pedestrians this last year than the previous. As far as that goes, we have been doing a lot of things citywide to try to improve bike and pedestrian safety. Some of those things we've done are we've installed rectangular rapidly flashing beacons with the overhead LED pedestrian crossing in a number of locations. Also, we have speed boards on Jackson Street, as well as a couple other locations, South Park and 9th in Minnesota. We recently installed those rectangular rapidly flashing beacons at the roundabouts off of 9th, 9th in Washburn and 9th in Kaler. And we also have put pedestrian flags at the other roundabouts to help pedestrians with crossing those areas. As you're aware, we also this year installed the RFBs on Witzel. Can't remember the crossroad off the top of my head, but over there by the shopping mall west of 41. And then we also installed them over by Lourdes on Jocelyn. And they continue to be pretty popular. So we are seeing some positive effects there. More recently, we've also planned for them on Jackson Street by Linwood, when the state's going to be doing a resurfacing project there in a few years, and then we'll upgrade the school flashers to RFBs there as part of that project. So those have been very beneficial. We've also, some of the other things we've done is we used the Continental crosswalk painting, which is the bold lines. We tend to use those for mid-block crossings. They have proven to be more visible and they're more effective. So we try to use those at the higher volume crossings, like Congress and Arboretum and Summit. That's a good example. And then we also have what's called that Hawk signal. That's been there almost over 10 years now, which is over on the university area on High. That one actually stops traffic when somebody pushes it. That one is, initially those were pretty popular. Now they've become a little less popular. Now the RFBs are more popular. And that's actually what the university and the police there have requested as well. They think those are more effective because you're not actually stopping traffic, but you're making them aware that pedestrians may be in the area. So that's another measure we've taken. Obviously, Main Street, when it was reconstructed, was made more pedestrian friendly as well. I mentioned the flags. We've also had bike and pedestrian safety days. There's Bike Oshkosh is coming up again in May, where they work with the Oshkosh Communities Program to have a bike event. And in addition to encouraging biking, also encourage them to, they do some safety education with those as well. One of the things I just wanted to mention there as well is obviously road diets help with the bike and pedestrian safety, and as you're aware, we've installed those in a number of locations. South Main Street this last year, Jackson Street, Murdoch. I still get a fair amount of requests for them in some other areas that we will evaluate in the future. The newest thing that's going on as far as bike and pedestrian is we are starting to work on, we're in the planning phases and pursuing grants for potentially a pedestrian bridge across Highway 41, which I think if we can get that done, that would be a huge benefit to both bikes and pedestrians. The roundabouts, as we know, are difficult to navigate, and even with putting the RFBs there and or the flags, it's still, you're dealing with a lot of cars coming at a decent rate. So if we could do that, I think that would be a huge benefit, especially for people that want to get from the west side to the east and vice versa without having to navigate the roundabouts to get off across 41 and or even Highway 44 where you don't have a roundabout it's fairly busy and it's just not very biker pedestrian friendly.
Where would you put it? Where would it be?
Yeah, I was wondering.
That's a good question.
It's
There's,
very vast.
I think they have two possible locations identified. One is near Taft. So it'd be near Taft where then there's the former Keenest property on the west side of Taft. It would connect somewhere in that area. The benefit to that location would be that it connects to like West High School, for example, and Red Arrow Park would be a nice connection. That's one possible location, and the other one is down towards Highway 44. But I'm thinking that one by Taft is going to get a little higher score. So we've been talking about that. It is in the bike and pedestrian plan. It has been for a while, but we've actually, we had a consultant do some initial work on that, and then we have someone actively going to pursue grants to help with that potential project. So I think that if we can get that done, that'd obviously be a really nice project for the city.
And that makes more sense than under.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if you could do under,
Okay,
honestly.
just curious.
Yeah, that would be difficult, I would think.
I just casual because I'm on it so much. 9th or Witzel. I know you see quite a bit of pedestrian and bike crossing
Yeah.
in both those areas.
That's why I think Taft would make a lot of sense, because it's kind of between, it's kind of in the center.
It's between Congress and Witzel, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And, so if you're going to you would probably cross there versus 9th, Witzel, or Congress. I mean, it would be pretty convenient for any of those three locations. And it would also benefit, like, for example, the kids that live west of 41, if you want to walk or bike to school, it's a pretty daunting task right now. So.
So would that, would that include bike paths on the west frontage road? Because that's not a real biker-friendly frontage road at all.
Right. Yeah, none of that, I don't think they've gotten that far yet, but yeah, they would obviously. have
Taft
to
makes
identify-
sense where
Right.
Taft is, but when you get on the other side, there's nothing
Right.
there really.
Yeah, that would have to be considered as well. I know there's sidewalks aren't a direct connection there. And you have to look at where the origin and destination, the landing point would be on each side, we see where it makes sense. So I think that's pretty exciting. Then we looked at the high crash locations. The majority of the high crash locations, and I'll pull up a map in a minute, but most of them are off the roundabouts on I-41. The ones that are, the on and off ramps are under the state jurisdiction. The city has jurisdictions for the ones that are, in the city off of that. But those they're already built, so it's difficult to really make many safety improvements there. Obviously, I think a pedestrian bridge would be great for bikes and pedestrians. But we continue to evaluate those as well as we go. And then I try to pick out a couple of the intersections to evaluate each year that are in the top 10. So this year that is Jackson and New York, as well as Algoma and Murdoch. And I'll talk a little bit about those when I pull the maps up.
Can I ask you about that 41? Is that people getting on 41 or off of 41 or both?
Both.
Is both.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, part of it is because there's such high volume locations. So obviously you're going to expect more crashes where you have more traffic.
What I've seen people do there is when they're getting on, they're not going to speed. So 41 is 70 miles an hour, and I see people getting on there at 50 miles an hour, and I'm behind them screaming.
Yeah.
They're asking for it's driver error.
Yeah, and that's obviously a lot of the crashes, probably the majority
They
of them.
forget they're supposed to speed up before they enter yeah.
So maybe a signage of some kind is all I'm saying. I know you can't change those
No,
ramps, but
yeah.
something that.
That's safe.
I always try to get away from them if I can. Get in the far lanes so that they're not.
I'm already on 41, yes, but I'm one of those
Oh,
people
you're following
merging
them
on.
out. Okay.
So I slow way down so I have more distance to them, so then I can speed up faster when I get there, but still.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So here's
You're
just
right.
a map that shows where the crashes were, and then the blue is the bicyclist, and
Really
we have
hard to
some
read.
packet, and yellow is the pedestrians. Yeah, it is, it's, let's see if I
Yeah, he can do that. We can't do that.
can- yeah, so that's,
There we go.
yeah.
Thank you.
So you can kind of get an idea. I mean, this obviously just kind of gives you an idea of where crashes were. You got to dig into the details to, get more meaningful information out of it. But I work with the East Central Regional Plan Commission, and their GIS staff, and they help put these together. And then the same thing for identifying the top 10 crash locations, so they help with that. So you can see we had the one fatal crash, which was, I think that was at like High in New York. There was a motorcycle that was going too fast for conditions, and was another car coming the other way, didn't see at an intersection. But you can kind of get a feel for where they are. And then obviously pedestrians are generally more in the center city area where you generally would see more pedestrians. So here then, like I said, this is the one I referenced earlier, where the top 10 crash locations. And you can see that the majority of them are those roundabouts off 41, and then this is the Jackson-Murdoch roundabout.
Can you tell when in the year they happen? Because
Yep.
because EAA, you're like, that's really a mess. People,
Yeah,
I'm
generally,
just curious if,
from the last years when I've done this, EAA, that week you see more of them down in this area, like 44, and this interchange here.
yeah. So the police, I think, do a pretty good job of being there.
Right.
Physically having to be there.
Yep,
But I would think that has something to do with the volume of them.
right. Yeah, down here for sure. So you can see here, and then we'll look a little bit at the Algoma and Murdoch and the Jackson and New York. I got some separate slides on that. So those are the two that, as a city, we can try to make some improvements at. Like I said, those roundabouts that's tough without redoing the roundabout. Like I know, like this Jackson and Murdoch roundabout it's the diameters, it met specs when they did it, but it's pretty small. And the reasons were because they had right-of-way issues. So ideally, if you ever notice, that one's a little smaller than the ones on 41. Ideally, it'd be a little bit bigger, but they just didn't have the land to do that, I guess.
It would be helpful on that one, because I was just on it today. We can't really see, people, like if I'm going out of town on Jackson and people are coming the other way, it would be helpful if the middle wasn't, if I could see.
Yeah, well.
The middle portion couldn't be so high.
That's intentional. The reason they do that is because they don't want people to drive through the middle of it. So that's why they didn't, they want you to be looking to your left.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why they did it like that, but then I don't know, there's also, like Nina put a big eagle in the middle of theirs, so there's obviously, even though that's not recommended, there's, people that have went against that, so.
Sure.
I know we had that debate when we put some of those welcome signs up too, like, if we should put them there or not, because you don't want to distract from people looking to their left.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's how they were designed.
It's working.
Yeah, like I said, they are working how they're intended to.
Yeah.
I mean, people that come from out of town are unfamiliar with them. I mean, you do get a few more incidents, but they're less severe. So then I looked at in East Central, thanks to them, they helped me with some of this as well. I used to have to do this pretty manual, but with their GIS folks, they're able to do this a lot more efficiently than I could. So this intersection, we've kind of looked at this for a number of years now. It had a higher crash rate prior to when we did the road diet. However, back then, most of the crashes were left turns. So, and the severity was a little bit higher. So we implemented no left turns during the peak hours for a couple of years before the road diet, and that actually helped really reduce the number of left turn crashes. Now, what's happened in the last few years is the number of crashes have, here in 2022, they've increased. However, that was, I believe, due to the construction of the new Val Phillips middle school, as well as there were a number of utility projects in that area over that year and a half. So there were more rear end crashes, but I think there was a lot more distractions going on. In 2023, we see it came down a little bit, not quite as far as we would like to, but it did come down. And again, I did read a lot of these crash reports. The majority of them were distracted drivers that, you know, they were looking at their phone or they bent over to pick something up and reared into the car in front of them. Now these were at an intersection with road diets. It is expected that rear end crashes there are more of them because people are getting impatient. You only have one lane of traffic, they can't go around. So that is an expected outcome. But at an intersection, if people are paying attention, that shouldn't be that way. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But like I said, I think this was an anomaly. I think this is more of a normal year. Still, the beginning of the year was still kind of some transition, but I think it'll be interesting to see what next year shows there. So I plan on looking at it again next year. And I'll skip down to Jackson again. So this just kind of shows you, this is for the whole road diet section. Kind of like you can see here too, the crashes by year. It spiked last year, now it's starting to come down a little bit. And then the rear end crashes have still, here's the rear end crash. They come down a little bit, but they're still kind of high, whereas the angled crashes have come down, so that's a good sign. We just have to try to figure out how to get people to pay attention a little bit more so they're not rearing at each other at that intersection. But hopefully with the decreased distractions and with the construction being done, that'll improve. Then the other intersection I looked at was the intersection of Algoma and Murdoch. This one hasn't been in the top 10 before, so I was kind of curious what happened here. What I found is that the majority of these are people that are going south that were turning left here. So they're going south on Algoma, turning left on Murdoch. And we do have a left turn arrow there. It was set to trigger the arrow if there was a stack of more than 2 cars. So I worked with our traffic signal folks and we adjusted this now so that left turn arrow will come on whether there's 1 car or more. So I'm thinking that with having that a little bit more of a dedicated time to turn, that hopefully we won't have as many conflicts. Because the majority of these were people turning left that then, you know, either the people coming forward or the people coming left, one or the other got impatient and they ended up making contact.
Well, Jim, one of the, you know, that corner, you've got that right turn lane coming off of Algoma going north. And I know it can be confusing because right turn normally has the right of way, but when they're turning left, they're already in the lane, so they have the right of way. Right. And I know there's a yield sign there, yeah, but I think it gets, I get confused sometimes when I take that corner.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm hoping now, like I said, with giving them dedicated turn to make that left.
Yes.
Make a lot.
Because somebody may be coming late after it's turning red, and so somebody
Right.
else has started to go. And
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the crash reports say. And then they both argue about, well, who had the right of way, so.
yeah.
Or they both, you know, so anyway, I think that should help, so hopefully this one will be on there next year then.
Also, can I just ask back at
Yeah.
the Jackson one, is it any time of day related, like school in or out, because cars stopping to pick up kids or whatever?
It wasn't necessarily school. I mean, generally we see a higher crash rate though during the peak hours, which is generally, usually, from the ones I've looked at in the past, it is, you know, that 3:30 to 5, I want to say.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily school related, but
Just
it's
the
just
higher
busier
traffic.
traffic at that time of day.
Sure.
It's generally when we see those. So I think that is majority of that part. So the only other thing I mentioned before, you know, we did the road on Jackson and we did the South Main last year. You know, there's been some interest in maybe looking at Murdoch east of Jackson, which I haven't had time to evaluate, but there's not quite as much traffic there, but it's something, in the future, we'll take a look at. And then also had a request for County Highway A north of Harrison. But I did bring that up to the County Highway Commissioner because that's their jurisdiction. However, the resident I talked to does have a good point in that they're at Sunnyview, when they redid that, they do have a wider path, and then there is a path from Sunnyview that goes north on County Highway A. However, there's nothing south. So there's kind of a gap between Harrison and Sunnyview where there's not really, it's 4 lanes and there's not really anywhere for bikes or pedestrians. So I did talk to the County Highway Commissioner, and he said, there's some right-of-way issues if they were to do a path or something, but maybe it's something we could look at a road diet on, and that might assist there. So he was going to look into that. So that's kind of the crash report for this year. So if there's no other questions on that, then I just have some staff statements. I'm going to look at it here so I can see it better. Our transit ridership continues to be a good trend. In March, we're up about 11% year to year, so from 24 to 23, and our year to date, we're up about 17%, so that's good news. This student ridership continues to be very popular. Year to date, it's about the same as it was last year. Month to month, it was down a little bit, but that continues to be very popular. And paratransit has been declining a little bit. However, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's a good thing, because if paratransit's down and fixed route is up, sometimes that indicates people are using fixed route instead of paratransit, which is what we want. If they're able to use fixed route, we want them to use fixed route because it's less expensive and obviously puts more people on the fixed route, which is good for the system. So any questions on the ridership report?
Did I see right that Go Connect changed? You can do same day requests
Yes.
for Go Connect?
Yeah, we just implemented that.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll see how that affects the Go Connect, which is the service between Oshkosh and Neenah. We're only averaging, honestly, 4 to 5 rides a day.
Yeah.
So
How did you then tell people that it had changed?
it actually just recently changed, but we got it out on Facebook and social media, and then we'll get it on our webpage.
Would there any chance for like putting it in the Herald for some
Yeah.
little announcement?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do it as part of a
Possibly.
press release. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. We've been so focused on our transit development plan that I don't know if we, but that's not a bad idea. We can see if we can get a message on it.
That's kind of a big deal, and I'm sure, everywhere you can.
Yeah.
That's great.
I know they were gonna put it downtown at the transit center too, but I don't know if they did that yet. So,
Jim, you have started the additional bus for students in the morning? and
Yep.
That's working fine?
yeah,
I
that's
assume?
going well.
Okay.
Yep. So then the other updates I have are the transit development plan that's on the council agenda tonight. So SRF Consulting will be doing a short presentation at the beginning of the meeting, answering any questions council have, and then they'll have an opportunity to vote on it then as a resolution. And that would include then the interlining changes, the route changes, and the fare changes, the things that we discussed at the last meeting. I did have a positive update for you. So at the last meeting, somebody had asked about the 3-month pass. So we did decide that we'll continue to offer that discount. So a 3-month pass will be, you get a $5 discount per month. So it's $15 over the 3 months. I know that one citizen was concerned about that. So hopefully that'll alleviate that concern. And then we are actively pursuing some fare technology. We've talked about in the past, but where you can scan the cards. The exciting thing about that is if and when we do that, I'm pretty sure we're going to, but it's just how long it's going to take, is then we can do fare capping. So, that'd be a big equity benefit. So what that means is if you don't have $40 to get a monthly pass and you're paying every day, whenever you get to $40, it caps, and then you don't owe anything else that month. You wouldn't have to owe anything until the following month. So that's pretty exciting. We're working on a system called Wisco that currently Milwaukee and Waukesha use, and Racine, and I believe Racine, and there's one other city that's going to be going on that system. So we're working with Milwaukee to see if we can't get that implemented. We're hopeful by August 1st, but if not, towards the end of the year. So we'd like to use it for student passes as well, so we're hoping we can maybe make that happen.
When do you think, assuming the council approves, when would some of those route changes take place? Would that be summer?
Yeah, we're thinking August 1st, because we'd like to have them in place before school starts,
Okay.
and we'd like to give everybody at least a few weeks to adjust before school starts, because students are, I think I figured today, like 25% of our ridership. So, and summer's a little bit slower sometimes, after EA anyway, until EA, but, so I think it'll be a good time to do that. And then the other update I had was on the parking changes to the downtown parking lots. So we have changed all the signage, so now there is more additional 2-hour parking available, and the leased parking is available. So far, we've leased 5 stalls. So 2 different parties, one released 4 stalls and one leased 1. So we'll see how that goes, but we haven't really seen a drastic change yet in behavior, but we'll see. That's all I got.
All right. Any future agenda items that you'd like to see? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Lindsay moves.
Second.
Second. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right. Call a roll on that.
Erickson,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
and Merle.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a